Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Tonight we are speaking with Roberto Osti and Carolyn Pyfrom about the exhibition The Human Form, Endless Inspiration, which features their work plus the work of Patricia Traub. Study, observation, and interpretation of the human figure is the center of each artist's creative endeavors. Roberto, would you like to start speaking about yourself and your work?
Yeah. So, so my work, the work that you see are of figure studies, right? They're not necessarily that to me is scary, right? That's me, the scary version of me that you guys see there, right? When I was probably 15 years old, younger. But why the figure, right? For me, the figure is just fascinating, right? You're never done painting it. You're not finished depicting it. So it's like as a friend of mine described it, the infinite subject, right? You think about it, we've been painting the figure, drawing the figure for thousands of years, 25,000, 30,000 years ago. We have depiction and cave painting of us, right? This is what we are. I think the body is the ultimate signifier, right? We keep attaching different meaning to the body. We're reading it differently um, according to the values, the specific historical period we live in. So, who am I to resist that, right? It's really it's fascinating for me the human body, and that's why I make it in my um, the center of my study, right? Study anatomy and not just from the outside, also from the inside, right? And to try to look at this again, this signifier in a layered way, not just the external um, forms, but also what lies under the skin, what lies under the muscle, the structure, etc. So they all this complexity um, contributes to create the beautiful infinite forms that the body can express. So that's why um, I'm compelled almost to draw the human figure, right? Um, when I was a student in Italy, I remember the teacher were telling us you had to express yourself. You had to kind of, in your art, you had to put the meaning of your experience. I said, I'm 18. What experience do I have, right? So, and I just didn't, I was not interested in that. I didn't have enough experience to go tell somebody, okay, about me. I found it kind of arrogant. Um, and so what I did, I was much more fascinated in keeping studying the human form. And what permitted me to do so in at a deeper level was the school of anatomical and surgical drawing illustration for scientific illustration. And there I studied the body from not just from a medical point of view, but also from a scientific approach to looking at the human form, looking at the human body throughout the centuries. And I think that that kind of really gave me this you know passion to keep looking at this, not just from an artistic point of view, but also from a scientific medical point of view. And the two things really come together. Right? We are all of these things together. So that's that would be me, at least what I do. The artwork that you see are not necessarily artwork that express my artistic research. Those are very different works. Those are kind of scary works. They're gigantic, they're big, life size, more than life size, played monsters. So those are really very different from what I do. What I do in my artistic research is I create this visualize this mythical monsters, right? And then I dissect them. That represent what we would do if we would find Apollo, right? When we find Apollo, what would we do? We dissect them because we want to look into the myth, right? So what is the myth, right? What is the myth? The myth is a projection of ourselves in another dimension, unreachable, right? And takes human form. So for now, up to recently, right, we had the myth in one place and real life in here. We project something in a place that cannot be reached, right? But now we could recreate almost. We are getting there to recreate, clone, right? A monster that comes from the myth. So our myths are not going to be deposited into an imaginary um, scaffolding, right? But into a real thing. So we are about to go past that wall that divides us, right? Physical us and the mythical us. And again, if we would find a myth, we would dissect it. We make it and then we dissect it. So that I find this challenging of the margin. I think I'm liminal. I tend to be liminal in my thing, right? I think that the challenging of our border margin is us. This is what we are, and that's why I create this monster. There's none of the monster that I make for my personal artistic research are here. But you can see how I try always to play with the figure, with the body, and it's many different possible manifestation, and even in small sketches, right? So, that's pretty much right. But
So
maybe next
Roberto,
time I'll bring you one big monster, but I don't know. I don't know. If you,
so the drawings in this show are like 1, 2, or 3 colors on tone paper, which is a Renaissance technique. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So do you feel an affinity for the
I
Renaissance?
definitely have an affinity on that because the Renaissance, um, one of the great defining aspect of the Renaissance is direct experience, right? Which is in contrast with the dogmatic um, the dogmatic scholastic method that can precede that, right? And with the direct experience, people started challenging the world they were seeing. They say, wait a second. Um, all these dogmatic things cannot be discussed. You had to take them and accept them. But what artists started doing was starting looking at the human body with direct experience, meaning they were not accepting the Galenic ideas of anatomy and structure, where they were dissecting. And they were saying, oh, Galen was not right here. So during the Renaissance, we have this rediscussion, revisiting, remeasuring of the universe, so just the human body, the universe, through science, through art, through nature, everything is rediscussed and revisited. So when the body is revisited, it is visited through the classical concept, right, that are attached to that. So the calocagatia, the soprosine, and all these things that were classical concept. And but then the body is dissected and measured, right? Anatomy and stereometry, for example. It's revisited, and now artists describe. Basically, it's a reinvention of the human body. More than reinvention, the rediscovery, remeasuring, right? Measuring the body with a different tool. And I find this extremely fascinating because when it comes to art, it's a way using the Florentine structural system, which is what it is. This is it, right? The body can be measured and remeasured from deep to the outside, and this is a conceptualization of the human body that, for example, we don't have in other methods that are more recent, like French Academy system, where imitation is at the base of the system, right? So with the French tone system, the student learn to copy exactly what they see. But I like the Renaissance because you learn to read what you see. You read to understand and interpret what you see instead of copying exactly what you see. So it's a more intellectual approach, if you want. This is also why the artists at this point in the Renaissance started defining themselves as intellectual and not as craftspeople or like artisan, right? As you get into later on into the need for the French Academy to standardize the product of the artist, right? Not just that, but all the product of the Academy were standardized, right? To be controlled by the central power. Then painting, drawing has to be done a certain way by everybody. That's a standardized output. Italian Renaissance is not like that. Everybody interprets and reads the human body, depending on how you interpret and read, your position, what emphasis you put on the skeleton versus the muscle versus the light, etc., etc. So I love that. That's the answer. The short answer is I love that method, right? The Renaissance method. Yeah.
Thank you, Roberto. So, Carolyn, would you like to speak?
Sure. Yeah, all of that's sort of intense and esoteric. I like listening to it. A lot to sort of, you know, sort of kind of percolate there. Just trying to process it. Yeah, I mean, I think the human body is a very natural starting place. I mean, I guess getting back, well, that's a classical quote, isn't it? Someone will have to help me. Who said man is the measure of all things? Do you know? I can't remember. It's a classical author. But I guess I guess it is also a Renaissance idea, like what Roberto was talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think, I just think I've got a body, we all do, and it's just kind of the most natural thing to do. It's just kind of, why not? I feel like there's, I feel like that's the most natural question, is why not? It seems sort of a natural starting place. And I mean, philosophically speaking, I guess, or somewhat more esoterically speaking, I think it is a way of sort of thinking about your placement. You kind of you sort of situate yourself that way. Yeah, I mean, I think you look out and you, especially if you're a representational painter, and I haven't seen Roberto's other works. I'd be very interested. I didn't quite understand, like their narrative, Roberto, their representational and narrative. Is that what you're saying? Their storytelling.
Yeah, they're figurative, but they are played, right? And some are drawing, some are, so what I like to show with I like to show things with extreme precision that are lies. I like to describe a lie in high detail. And so dissecting a monster is a lie, right? Because if I dissect a werewolf, right? One of my work is called Dissection of Werewolf. And of course, werewolves don't exist, right? But if I dissect it clearly, showing all the muscle and all the nerves and all the things, I realize in my scientific background that people believe it, or it becomes believable. And I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. The narrative.
Yeah.
The narrative cannot be just being made up, right? And it becomes a metaphor, or becomes something, a vehicle to tell a story, etc. But it can also be a story that is completely false, but it's nonetheless engaging and believable. I think religion is that, which I call these beautiful lies, right? The religion is a beautiful lie. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying this is a need that we have. And I respect it highly. I respect the high religion, but I think we need to be careful about religion or other myths or something like that, because they are beautiful story, a beautiful metaphor, a beautiful ways of conveying the human nature. But then when we start building up a structure on top of it, political, social, etc., then we get in trouble. But I'm not saying let's deny this cancel religion. It's important. That's how we are. We need what that is the route to challenge the world. We challenge the world all the time, right? We deny, say, no, I'm not an animal, right? Or no, I want to live 200 years, 300 years. I'm going to do all it takes for me to live, right? I'm going to be resurrected in another place. Right? This is so beautiful. We need that. We need that, right? Because we are able to um, to imagine the absence. So, or imagine something that is not here. For example, if I say let's go to paint in Paris, right? And if I say this to a dog, the dog says Paris. What is that, right? If I tell this to you, even if it's not here, I can tell you a story about Paris, and
Yeah.
I can evoke in your head the image of Paris. So we
We're
imagine.
always imagining. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
looking I'm quoting my husband actually, who is always talking about looking as an imaginative act. Even you talk about working from imagination, and you talk about looking from, working from observation as two different things, but they're not so much. When you're looking, you're imagining and
I'm
creating and
imagining,
touching
yeah,
and
and making up and lying, but I'm
yeah, of course. There's
I'm
no
clear
such thing
about that
as
because
pure observation.
yeah,
There's
Yeah,
yeah, but
Carolyn, could I ask you a little bit about your approach? So
Mhm.
are you working strictly from observation when you make your paintings?
Well, I mean, I think like what Roberto was saying is true. I don't think I mean, I've taught lots and lots of beautiful students, and I've had many students who say, "Oh, I'm just trying to paint what I see," and I know what they mean, but I don't think they yet know what they mean. And I feel like I went through that where you think, oh no, I'm just trying to get to a thing that's there. But um you're always making it a kind of a music and kind of reaching for things that you value, and really the whole process is a sort of test of those things that you value, whether you're kind of trying to find the things that you care about. I mean, you think about even the painters we think about who would be the most
how do you
sort of
start your process?
pure observation. Sorry?
How do you start your process, your painting process? How do you start
Oh,
it?
me? Oh, well, these are all, oh, except for this. This is an older painting. This is me at 10 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
So that's on linen, and I don't remember exactly. It's kind of, I think generally a free for all. Anyway, kind of
You make studies ahead of time, or do you just, how do you?
with a bigger project, with some kind of like a commissioned work. Yeah, I know I would present color studies and do run through ideas. I mean, that would be pretty spontaneous, where I would just sit down and go, okay, that looks interesting. There's two mirrors set up for that. So that's a bit elaborate, as elaborate as it might get when you're
What do
sort
you
of
need
like,
for your,
I'm gonna do something, and you put two mirrors up.
was that for
Like,
your
woo, I set
self-portrait?
something up. Yeah. These paintings are more recent, very recent, within the last year, and they're on paper to start with, and they started out as drawings. So I kind of respond to Roberto's sense of, just love of like a body and what am I looking at, and like kind of touch it. And yeah, like that, when I'm in front of a person, there's nothing that feels or it gives me a greater sense of urgency. Like I need to be here with this person. I've got them for a short time, who knows for how long, and I need to get what I can from this person while she's here. And that feels like you're trying to catch something that could run away at any second. So I mean, for me, there's nothing more exciting or sort of worthy of the chase than that. Really, nothing gets me to the studio more readily. I mean, this drawing started out, that upper right panel, you can see it's in pieces. It was a drawing of that cast of the arm on the shelf, and I was just kind of hanging out, like, I'll draw this arm up there, that's interesting. And then I'll put there's a mirror on the shelf, I'll put myself in it, there's another cast. And then my model was there for the other painting, which is on the other side, on the other wall. And oh no, today we're gonna come over here and would you mind? I think it would be interesting if you stand over here. So it just kind of grew that way, like that. And I think if that still life weren't an arm and a bust, I'm not sure it would get me into the studio as readily as if it were just any other kind of still life. Not that I don't love looking at other kinds of still life, but that's just the thing. And then Kira there coming in to stand there makes that all feel like, you don't have time. You got to race and you got to catch what you can. I mean, a still life of a cup or, the objects on the shelf might move around, but, a person we're only here for a little bit. So that feels like something to chase.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read Pat's statement and then come back to you guys. Okay. Patricia Traub is a master animal anatomist and painter of the human form. Her work focuses primarily on the relationship of humankind and nature. She employs an extensive knowledge of animals and their physiology in a symbolic, realistic, and psychological approach to painting. The result is dramatic and often disturbing explorations into the spirit of the connection between humans and animals. Traub's highly painterly technique reflects a contemporary expression of styles of the Renaissance and Baroque periods, as well as aspects of 20th century abstract expressionism. Traub describes her works as contemplative places where viewers can touch on their spiritual selves as well as nature. Just to say again, Traub describes her works as contemplative places where viewers can touch on their spiritual selves as well as nature. Her work also expresses a great deal about the nature of painting. The sheer beauty of the painted surface is a seduction. It takes the viewer on a visual and emotional journey. Trained in part at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, where she was a professor of drawing and painting, Traub has traveled widely to study animals, and she observed orangutans in Borneo, traveled to France to study ancient breeds of horses, and through Kenya to observe and draw native wild animals. Closer to home, she spent many hours drawing and painting farm animals in Lancaster County. So that's Pat's statement. So Roberto and Carolyn, I have a question for you. So Roberto, you're Italian, you're from Italy, you go
From
back and
Bologna,
forth.
yeah, from Bologna.
Carolyn, you studied in Italy.
Mhm.
So I'm interested just to know, your thoughts about that, or how that's influenced your outlook, artistic outlook.
And whether I can come see Roberto in his Italian home sometime. I can invite myself to see him. Sorry, I was just joking. What was the question?
Well, you attended the Florence Academy, yeah?
I did,
Right.
yes. And I lived in Florence for 4 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, and let me think. The school I went to, Florence is a wonderful place. It makes me so happy when I'm in Florence, and I dream of getting back there for an extended period of time again sometime. I've never been to Bologna.
It's on the other side of the Apennine, like half an hour.
Yeah, I know it's not so far. Yeah, no, and in fact, when I was dreaming about going back to Italy for a little while, maybe I should go to Bologna. Maybe I should go a little bit out of Florence. That was one of the places I thought I might spend some time. Is that where the Ducati factory is? I think there's
What?
Is the Ducati factory?
Yeah.
Is that the home of Ducati?
Yeah, it's like 3 miles from my home in Bologna.
Oh, see, I need to come see you.
One of my friend was a test driver of Ducati, and
Oh my goodness.
very close. He was crazy though. He was crazy though. Don't do that. Don't be a test driver.
Well, when you're going all over the hills of Tuscany. Yeah, no, it's funny. I just love Florence. And I of course there's just so much to look at there. The school I went to really was not so connected to the history of Florence, ironically, it was sort of more 19th century French academic. And the person who started it, I think, loved Florence and loved living there, and decided he was going to start his school there. But yeah, the tradition I went through was a little bit more academic. I think the Renaissance, if you go way back to the Renaissance, you get connected maybe more to the tradition that Roberto is coming from, which is very form oriented, right? And yeah, sort of, just get back to that very sculptural, anatomical way of looking at things. Whereas the school I went to was really a little bit more sort of what would you say?
Right?
Not photographic.
Observation, right? More observation, right? The French,
observational, certainly, and more like I don't know why I'm kind of words are failing me, but like, just more about impressionistic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like very like less sort of tactile, connected to that. You think about Michelangelo or Andrea del Sarto, or Pontormo, those folks who are really sort of touching the thing they're drawing, or sculpting it. And what we were doing is really just sort of removed, a little bit more removed, and I'm back here and I'm looking at, and quite literally setting up, you're drawing next to a cast and going, what does it look like? What does it look like? What does it look like? And just really trying to have that sort of idea of detachment, which was beneficial for study, certainly. And I had
Yeah, that's
great
what I
time there.
meant before, right? Depending on how you analyze the human body, how to study, really, you can obtain different results, different depiction, meaning you look at the body in a certain way, and then you extract certain information, and then visualize those. And that is usually, when you have a training, is a conscious operation that you do. That's why I think the training, whatever training we have, it's important to have, because it's a language. The training give you access to a language.
Yeah.
The way the Florence Academy is the method is coming from the classical tradition, the classical, neoclassical. In a sense, neoclassicals removes the organic part of the human body, in the sense that idealizes it. And the classical, neoclassical is very, think of Canova, for example, very polished, because the body becomes carrier of idealized concept, right? Whereas the Renaissance, the guy having the hands in the guts of the people, dissecting them, so the physicality of the body is still well felt in the early Renaissance. But when we get into and that's why what you were saying, when you get into the classical tradition, is that those images tend to be much more idealized and polished, because those are the values of the neoclassical society, for example, 1700, right? And that's what the art depicts. So, right? But yeah, different results. But I think that the important thing is, you think you agree with this, is you need a method, or understand that you need to have certain ways of accessing what the body can tell you. Read it as a book, and it's not just technique. It's about really being able to appreciate the form of the body, the language of the body, and then giving it back to in forms of a painting, right?
Well, there are many tensions. I mean, I think that idealization versus this sort of brute observation, that's one. I think this tension you keep talking about between some sort of some, you've called it mythological or something, which is somewhat otherworldly. Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. Versus, how that might sort of be in attention with something you're looking at. I mean, I think there's no such thing as, at any rate, just what you're looking at. Yeah.
Carolyn and Roberto, did you have any final thoughts on the show itself?
It was nice to have three different artists with three different takes, and that kind of, I think, pointed out how many ways we can depict the human body. And your work, Carolyn, are beautiful. They're beautiful and inspiring. It just kind of hit me, all of them, in a very intense way. And it was very, very nice to see, to interact with our artists like this, and see what your language is, what your how you extract from the human body. So that was the human figure. So that was, I was happy to be included.
Definitely. I mean, it's always interesting to see how someone else is like really responding and reacting to a subject that you love, for sure.
Well, thank you to you, too, plus Patricia Traub, for the show. It's a beautiful show, and it's up through June the 16th. So we hope people come down to see it. And all the work is also available on our website, ceruleanarts.com. So you can check it out there. And thanks so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mm.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you both.
Well, thanks again and have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.